Welcome back to the I Just Love Footy YouTube channel. Today I've tasked myself with the undesirable challenge of selecting Collingwood's best 22 for opening round. Now bear in mind I'm not selecting anyone who is currently injured, so that would include Nathan Murphy, Dan McStay, Dimatia and also Josh Eyre, so they will not be involved in this selection. Starting in defence, I'll pick my first key defender in Billy Frampton. I think Billy did really well coming over to Collingwood in his first season. I didn't think he was going to do as well as he did. He served as a really versatile player who could be asked to do a job in the forward line or in the ruck as seen when needed. However, his best position is in the back line, and when he did play last season in the back line, I couldn't fault him. He did really well as a second to third key tall in that back line, and while he didn't have the best grand final, I think anyone with half a footy brain would have known that it is hard to come in after a period of time where you haven't played in the AFL and asked to do a job on one of the best intercept defenders in the league in Harris Andrews. So I think we've got to give him a bit of space and understand that his best position is in defense and really excelling his game even further this season. My other key tall is obviously our skipper in Darcy Moore, probably the best defender in the league in my opinion, whether that be one-on-ones, intercepts. He's daring with the ball. When he takes his kick-ins, he's always looking for the toughest option. He's risk tolerant, and that's what I love about Darcy. 6'6", having such a nice kick and a great intercept mark, and just a real, I guess, warrior when it comes to being in the battles and the rigors of the AFL. Another key tall / medium-sized defender who plays tall in Jeremy Howe. He is one of my favourite players to watch, and I do pray that he has an injury-free season this year. I don't know how much more he's got left in the sense of a want and a yearning to play AFL at the to play footy at the highest level. So let's hope that he can get a clean run, and if he wants to sail into the sunset at the end of this season after we go back to back, then that's more than okay. I think we might see him swing into the forward line at some point, depending on what type of selection Fly goes throughout the season. My first player coming off the halfback flank is Isaac Quaynor. Now, if you've seen any of the videos I've made previously about him, clearly you know I am very optimistic and buoyant about where his season can take him by the end of the year. I think, as most people would be aware, he is elite in the one-on-one marking contest. Being 5'11", I would consider Isaac Quaynor a medium to small defender in the modern game of AFL, and he plays well above his height. On the other halfback flank, how can you go past Jack Crisp? On the other halfback flank, how could I go past Mr. Finals, Jack Crisp? I think he's so reliable when it comes to those big games, and rarely gets the recognition that he probably deserves. Super consistent, doesn't miss games, and you know what to get from him, and fits the Collingwood philosophy very well. At centre half back, I've got Braden Maynard, the heart and soul of our team. What we would be without him, I don't know. I'm always apprehensive to question what would it be like if we were out without a single player. And I know footy's a team sport, but his attitude and energy must permeate through the team and take our game to another level. Maynard is clearly huge for the culture, and to have a strong culture and a tight-knit group is what ultimately separates a lot of teams from winning those clutch moment games and not, because you want to fight and win for your mates and the people that you love. On one of the wings, I have still side bottom. Now, as long as he is fit and healthy, he does not leave my team by any means at all. He can play forward if we really want. He can kick left and right. He just owns that wing on the MCG. His leading patterns are so good, and he always manages to find the ball on the wing and stay busy. I'm sure many other wingers and coaches from other teams are looking at footage of Sidey's running patterns on the wing and trying to implement that into their own game. On the other wing, I want to go with Josh Dacos, someone who can eventually move into the middle. I think it's so stacked that he is probably best suited in the wing forward role. He did appear in some centre bounce attendances against North Melbourne. Granted, that was while there was a bunch of first option midfielders that weren't playing in Scott Pendlebury, Tom Mitchell. My main ruckman will be Darcy Cameron, rotating with Mason Cox for the time being. I think Cameron's spot is more consolidated than Mason Cox's right now, as he has a little bit more forward craft in my opinion, so we'll see how that all pans out. But yeah, love them both and love what they were able to do throughout the final series last season. My two Rovers being Nick Dacos and Geordie De Goey, having a nice little mix there between Scott Pendlebury in the centre, who I forgot to mention, Scott Pendlebury in the centre, along with De Goey and Dacos. So those are my three, including Cameron/Cox, to be in the middle when the ball is bounced. If you do like AFL content regarding analysis for players, teams, predictions, previews, reviews, then be sure to subscribe, because I'll be posting content all year long. During the season, off-season, pre-season, I'll be there and I want you to be there with me, so subscribe. Looking across the half-forward line, we've got Bobby Hill, who is looking to take his game to another level. He's been absolutely outstanding in this off-season and pre-season, kicking goals, being really composed with the ball and providing some great goal assists, and providing a lot of goal assists to go with the goals that he's scoring. It'll be interesting to see what type of balance he shares with Lachie Schultz. In the game against North Melbourne, we saw Lachie Schultz played a bit higher and then Bobby Hill played it as a bit more of a deeper forward pocket player, but I imagine that would be an alternating role given the circumstances of each game. At centre half forward, we've got Brody Myercheck, the ever reliable Checkers. Had a great season last year, averaged over 2 goals per game, and playing as a relatively undersized key forward, you couldn't ask any more for him, especially when he had to do it without the likes of Dan McStay, and then that unstable volatility when it came to having another key tall stand next to him throughout the game. He typically wore the brunt of the best defender every game last season. On the other half forward flank, I've got Jamie Elliott. Started a bit slow last year, but found his way into it, and I think we all trusted that he would find his way. You're allowed to have a dry patch throughout the season, as everyone mostly does. He has also been trialled at halfback during this pre-season, off-season, and we saw that happen in the intra-club match in particular, as well as some match simulation practice throughout their training sessions. So keep an eye on that. I can only imagine it's just to add the versatility to his game, and depending on how quickly the youngsters step up in the forward line, he may be pushed out to the halfback flank, so we'll see what happens there. In the forward pocket, we've got Lachie Schultz, obviously flyer, looking to add some tackling pressure and some more goals into our forward 50, and he's done that by acquiring Lachie Schultz. So I'm really excited and optimistic about what Lachie Schultz can bring to this season. I think we're really undermining how good of an acquisition he was. At full forward, I've got Ash Johnson, another player who's been absolutely outstanding in the off-season and pre-season, kicking 3 goals against North Melbourne last week, and that was just the cherry on the top of the cake based off the work he's put in the off-season and pre-season. He kicked multiple goals as well in intra-club a couple weeks ago. In my opinion, this is AJ's spot to lose, and I think things are just starting to click for him, and he's starting to feel that belief from his teammates provided around him. In the final forward pocket, we've got Reef McInnes. Absolutely outstanding game given the lack of service against North Melbourne last week, kicking 3 goals. He had a goal assist, he took contested marks, he even dared to kick on his left foot after taking a mark and kicking inside 50 with his left foot, which is unusual because usually when you have a set shot or you have a mark and then you take a kick, usually you go with your preferred foot. But he had the angle for the left foot and he didn't hesitate to use it and put it on show for everyone to see. Looking at my interchange, I've got Tom Mitchell on the bench. I don't know if he's got a position anywhere besides a midfield, so it'll be interesting to see how his season transpires. Does he stay in the team the whole time? I do want to give Tom Mitchell his flowers for the year he had in 2023. You can tell he added to the culture and he filled the hole in the contested possession deficit that we had in 2022 and played a significant role in us earning our premiership in 2023. Our next bench player is Paddy Lipinski, who is quite versatile. Might see some more midfield time as the years go by, maybe even this year, but we'll see him a bit on the wing and in the forward line. He, arguably in my eyes for Collingwood, he was best on against North Melbourne, kicking 2 goals. He amassed 17 disposals and was just really composed with the ball. His running patterns were good as far as, I think with the plays that he made going into the forward line. He actually ended up getting that final pass, taking a mark, and then kicking the goal. So just shows that when he makes his first play by way of a kick or handball, he's thinking well ahead where he can find the ball next, and that's a great trait to have as an AFL player. My next bench player has to be Finlay Macrae. I couldn't find him a spot on the field just yet, but I think he might demand that himself throughout this year based off the preseason he's had. He had roughly 20, I think he had 20 disposals, had a handful of tackles and kicked a goal against North Melbourne. The Collingwood midfield's colours were lowered in that game, but Finlay on a personal level was impressive and maybe not as good as the intra-club match that he had the week before, but I think in totality, his pre-season has been outstanding and deserves a crack at AFL level this season. My last bench spot before the substitute is obviously Mason Cox, as I did imply before that he would be rotating with Darcy Cameron through the ruck. Again, another interesting prospect to see where Cox's season is by the end of it all once it's all said and done, so we'll see where that goes. And my sub. Now, this is tough. Like, selecting the 22 is tough with such a great team and a team that is looking to build on the year that had last year. I've gone with Beau McCreary purely because we've got Lockie Schultz and Bobby Hill doing their thing in the forward line as the smaller forwards, and then Jamie Elliott as well, who I can't see putting him as a sub in lieu of McCreary. Beau is looking to add a string to his bow and play in the middle, so I think playing as a sub and then coming into the midfield throughout the season might be a way to build his craft there. But this is my opinion for the first team that we'll see out on the park in the opening round. For the emergencies, I've got Nathan Kruger, who has showed big bits and pieces throughout the preseason, but is lacking a bit of consistency. Maybe a little bit hard done by in the North Melbourne game, considering there wasn't a lot of service. His energy, he wasn't able to have that imprint on the game because the ball wasn't around him enough. But when you compare his performance against AJ and McInnes, who were both able to get 3 goals despite the lack of quality going inside 50 and the lack of volume going inside 50, I think ultimately Kruger for now will sit out of my best 22. I've got a jack of all trades in the emergencies in Will Hoskin-Elliott. Hoskin-Elliott will probably go down as a player who was underappreciated by the fans, but I think if you talk to any of the players surrounded him, they would probably talk to how he is such a diverse player and a team first player, and that's what he's done ever since he's come over from GWS. And finally, my last emergency, who's a bit of a bolter in my opinion, that is Lockie Sullivan. Lockie has not put a foot wrong all pre-season and dominated in the intra-club match that they had a couple weeks ago. And when he came on in the game against North Melbourne, picked up a handful of disposals and even kicked a goal. I want to see him feature early in the season, and that's why I've got him in my emergencies. Talking to a couple of players who I think will get a run at some point during this season, I'm thinking about TJ, who has been playing well beyond his age in the couple games that I've seen him being involved in. He will probably feature on the half-back flank somewhere at some point, as he does have some running dash with an element of intercept marking in his arsenal. Allen has also shown some promise in the preseason. He'll probably get a run at some point if we start to see injuries or form woes in Pendlebury and Tom Mitchell. I know it's crazy to suggest that Scott Pendlebury might go through a form woe, but he is only getting older, so I have to be realistic and transparent about the thoughts that I'm having in my mind. Harvey Harrison has been a bit of a sleeper, so I think he will get an opportunity. He's been under the tutelage of Jamie Elliott, so if he can emulate 80% of Elliott's game as he gets older, then I think he'll be a great player for Collingwood in the long term. Jacob Ryan will probably get a run. He's been quite reliable and played well and didn't lower his colours against North Melbourne. He played a game last season. I think it was cut short due to a concussion as well, so I think we'll see a bit more from him. Carmichael has been good this preseason. I want to see a little bit more from Charlie Dean before I can consider him in the starting teams. So I've currently got him in the category of players to get games at some point. And finally, I had real trouble keeping this guy out of the best 22 plus a sub, and that's Markov. Now, I do still think he will feature in opening round, but something tells me, just based on my interpretation of the team, I don't know if over the long term of the season whether he'll feature heavily. He came in late last season and did really well, and again adds some great value to the culture. So I love that for him, but I just don't see him in our best 23. And then lastly, I've got John Noble in there, who did nothing wrong last year and unfortunately saw himself out of the team before the finals, which is difficult for anyone, and he's taken it like a champ, and he's probably taken it personal. So I do expect him to get some games, but for the moment I don't have him in my best 23. I've also got a handful of players in an outer layer category. Those players are Aiden Begg, Oscar Steen, Jack Bytel, Joey Richards, and Will Parker, who we've just signed as a Category B rookie, if I'm not mistaken, a former cricketer playing at an elite level, so yet to be seen what he's capable of. So those are the players who are on my outer layer for now. Thanks for sticking around. Let me know what your thoughts are. This was a unfathomable position to be in selecting the team, but I pushed myself to be in the coach's shoes for a period of 20 minutes, and it wasn't nice. I'm sure many of you are going to disagree with some of my ideas, but for now, until I see some of your input in the comment section, I'll see you next time. Bye bye.